Let's get a background up, shall we? Boom. Good. Boom. Good to go. I don't know why. Hey, Jeannie, what's going on, sweetheart? I don't know why Mac gives. The moment Mac starts speaking, I just start getting totally fucking worried. I'm like, the moment Mac starts speaking, I just start getting totally fucking worried. I'm like, start speaking. Oh, I don't think Mac. That's because Mac. Why might I not do that? Is there possibly a reason? Yes, Miss Andre saves lives. Just send me a message on Discord. Irish and NYC. Irish and NYC. And so I don't know why Mac gives me such, I don't know, trauma or something. But like the moment she said Dean, I was like, nope, nope, I'm not getting another cancellation. I'm out of here. But then I heard what she was saying and I was like, oh, all right, I get where she's coming from. But like, she terrifies me. Mac literally terrifies me. But then I heard what she was saying and I was like, oh, all right, I get where she's coming from. But like, she terrifies me. Mac literally terrifies me. I'm always terrified, like, because she's just so loose. If that always terrified, like, because she's just so loose. If that makes sense. So like when I dropped and it sounded like my ass was like clenching, it definitely was clenching. But that was a nice live. That makes sense. So like when I dropped and it sounded like my ass was like clenching, it definitely was clenching. But that was a nice live to end the week with. Or I kind of liked that live for ending the week. That was a nice live to end the week with. Or I kind of liked that live for ending the week. We had. Do you guys think that was Bree? By the way, the person who came in saying Bree's in the hospital. Does anyone have any sort of suspicion? Do you guys think that was Bree? By the way, the person who came in saying Bree's in the hospital. Does anyone have any sort of suspicion as to whether that was Bree? Like my guess is that was Bree, but I'm obviously not entirely sure. Like I'm trying to think who else would it be? Tay, Tay doesn't know they're live. That's interesting. Let's let this play out. We'll just keep this going. Oh, Tay, don't do that. We almost heard more going on in the background. That's upsetting. And so, like, I'm pretty sure that was. We almost heard more going on in the background. Bree. So that's nice to see that Bree is just literally fucking trying to avoid accountability and get empathy again. I doubt Eileen would do that, to be honest with you. So that was nice. The RC live, Mac getting a decent apology, that was unexpected, but great because I know Mac has been really upset about the fact that she does know that RC has given valid apologies to other people and had failed to do so with her. I don't know how you guys felt, but it was really fun dog walking RC. Like there was a lot of like really fun moments for me. I really enjoyed it. I do worry though that platforming RC. I hope it's not harmful. I don't know. I go back and forth on it to be honest with you. Tay, what's going on?
Yeah. Um. But what was wrong with me going up in that other live?
Oh, we were just ending it.
But I mean, you said that I was a troll.
No, there was 3 people in the requests. There was
Oh.
someone else who had 2 followers.
Oh, two. I was a troll.
The requests. There was
Oh.
some. Yeah, if someone has just created a brand new account, but they're wanting to talk on a live, they're almost always going to be a troll.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense.
What's up? What's up?
Oh yeah, I don't know. You just said to come over here, so I just came over here.
Yeah, because you were in the request of the other live. You know you were in the request for the other live, right?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. But
Yeah. So like this is a continuation of that live. So it's the same prompt. What would you like to say?
um, I mean, false allegations. They usually 9 times out of 10 they're gonna ruin somebody's life. I
Why
mean,
do you think that?
well, it depends on what the allegation is. Like the false allegations
We're
that
talking we're talking about SA grape, just to be clear.
yeah, that those are gonna ruin somebody's life.
I mean, why do you think that? I disagree. Why do you think that?
I mean, if they're real allegations, 9 times out of 10 it's gonna go to
But
court.
hang on. It says false allegations, though.
False allegations, but when the false allegation first comes out, it's not gonna. People aren't gonna instantly know that it's a false allegations. Somebody's gonna believe it. It's gonna have to go to court, or somebody's gonna have to actually find out that it's false. People aren't just gonna know that it's false,
You
or somebody's gonna have to actually find out that it's false. People aren't just gonna know that it's false.
you think that real allegations hurt people as well when there's real grape?
Yeah, they especially do. But even false.
When there's real grape?
Yeah, they especially do. But even false allegations, if at first people are gonna believe them, and then people can lose their jobs. They can like act like because like when they go to court, they can lose a lot of money, and then on top of that, they're gonna lose their jobs. They could go to jail for a certain amount of time. They can like there's a bunch of stuff that could happen.
But
Like
you agree that they could also win their case. You agree that they can also
I mean,
not
even
get
if they
charged.
win their
You
case,
agree that they can also not lose their jobs. You agree they can also not lose their reputation, right?
but that rarely happens. And
Yeah,
also,
that's the point. So why do you think
it's a
that
violent
that's the rare example? Why do you think that's what happens? Where are you getting your
because
information
that's the
from?
entire reason y'all are having these lives is because it's something that people say. It's like it happens
Yeah,
a
people say
lot,
it, but it's not true.
huh?
Yeah, people say it all the time, but it's not true. People also say there's a Santa Claus, but that's not true, right?
Huh?
Yeah, people say it all the time, but it's not true. People also say there's a Santa Claus, but that's not true, right?
I when I said like people say, I mean like people talk about it. I wasn't saying that it was definitely true. I'm
Okay, people
saying
say to
that
Angelina Jolie.
like people say, I mean like people talk about it. I wasn't saying that it was definitely true. I'm
Okay, people
saying
say to
that
Angelina Jolie has never had plastic surgery. It doesn't make it true. Just because people
I
say it,
wasn't saying that it was a true. I was just saying like people talk.
people
I
say it.
wasn't saying that it was a true. I was just saying like people talk about it. It's a thing that's brought up because it happens a lot. It actually does happen a lot.
Why do you think it happens a lot? You're not answering why.
It actually does happen a lot
Why do you think it happens a lot? You're not answering why. What
because
information?
it just does. It happens a lot. There's no thinking about it. It
Okay, do you
literally
believe in
happens.
God?
Dog, this has nothing to do about it. It
Okay, do you
literally
believe in
happens.
God?
Dog, this has nothing to do
Do you
with
believe in
God.
God? Do you believe in God?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm,
I
yes.
assume you believe in the Christian Bible God.
I believe in God. I believe in
Are
my
you a Catholic? Are you a Christian? Do you believe in the New Testament, the Old Testament? Are you an Abrahamic? Like, what type of religious person are you?
crazy. I'm Catholic.
Great, you're Catholic. Okay, so you believe in the God of the New and Old Testament. Okay. Um, do you know about Zeus? Do you know about Norse mythology?
Yeah, but I don't really look
Okay. If I
into
was to say, I believe that Thor or Odin are real gods, and you asked me, why do you believe that? And I turned around and I said, because lots of people say it's true. And then you ask me, yeah, but why do you think that is? And I say, well, lots of people say it's true. And then you say, well, hang on, I know a lot of people say it, but that doesn't make it true. And then I respond and say, well, that's why they're saying it, bro. They keep saying it because it's true. Do you understand that I'm not actually providing evidence for my
That's
claim?
not what I'm saying.
Well,
Like,
but what have you said that's more than other people told me? What have you said that's more than other
because
people
like
claim it
you're
happens?
talking about what you're specifically talking about. I can say that because it actually you can look at this. You can look at these things. It's actually
You can look at the
happening.
stats. Is that what you're going to say?
No, it's not stats. It's actual people that are actually going through real court cases and real things. Like it's actually
Do you know
happening.
anyone who's been accused of grape?
There's no thinking or telling people
Do you
about it.
know?
It's
Do you
really
know
happening.
anyone who's been accused of grape?
You can go on Google and Google somebody that's
Do
been
you know
accused of it.
anyone who's been accused of grape?
Not off the top of my head, but I have a phone. I can go on Google and
Okay.
Google
Do you
these
know
things.
anyone who has been graped?
No,
Well, you do. Statistically, you do. It just means they don't feel safe enough to tell you. So you're telling me this happens all the time. How old are you?
22.
Okay. I assume you're not some virgin that sits in your house all day long. I assume you've met hundreds of people. I
Met, I
assume
haven't
you have
had.
a
I
decent
don't.
social group. And you're telling me you know dozens and dozens of people and you've never even heard of someone who's ever even been falsely accused. Not one in your real life, right?
Not like in my real life, like that. I really like talk to, like have like real connections with. No,
Okay, great. So you agree then that your source for this information is not your real life, it's the fact that you've read a couple of examples online, correct?
but like you can like this is like it's real things that are happening.
I'm
Like
not saying it doesn't happen.
it's
Sometimes it happens, right? But you agree you're basing this on the fact that you have read a couple of cases, correct?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. And you agree you're from America, right?
yeah.
There's 330 to 350 million people in America, right? So the fact that you've heard a few cases, right? You couldn't even name two cases, right? Let's be real. You can't even tell me two. And you likely have never even heard more than 10. And so, because you've heard less than a dozen cases out of a population of 350 million people, it's weird for you to say this is what normally happens. Because
I'm not
if it's
saying
what
that it
normally happens, you would see it a lot more, and you don't.
because it's a majority of a minority. It's not not everybody gets gets false allegations put on them. But out of all of the people that get false allegations put on them, but out of all of the people that get false allegations put on them, majority of them it's gonna mess up something in their life. It's gonna
Oh, no,
mess
no,
up
no. Hang on.
something,
The prompt
whether
doesn't
it's
say,
socially or they
the
lose their
prompt doesn't
job or
say,
anything in their life. It's gonna
oh, no,
mess
no,
up
no. Hang on.
something,
The prompt
whether
doesn't
it's
say,
socially or they
the
lose their
prompt doesn't
job or money.
say, the prompt
It's
doesn't say false allegations alone don't do anything. It says it doesn't ruin a man's life. It doesn't ruin their life.
yes, it can
It says it doesn't ruin a man's life. It doesn't ruin their life.
yes it can it messes up their life. They can lose their job.
They don't, though.
Just
But they
during the
don't lose their
small
job.
amount of time that people think
But they
that
don't
it's
lose their jobs.
a lot of the times they do, and a lot of the times when they do, they don't get them back.
How do you know that? You just pulled that out of your ass. You don't know anyone
You
that's ever.
can Google it.
Have you
You can
Googled it? Have
Google
you
these
seen this to
things.
be the case?
Yes, the people it's
Who?
talked about. These are things that
Who?
people just talk about.
Who?
You can Google it. I don't. People look at these things and they forget them. I don't sit and study these things. These are normal and they forget them. I don't sit and study these things. These are
So
normal
why
things
do you
that
pretend
people
to know about
can
them
look
if you
up
literally
in their
admit you?
everyday life. These are
Why do
normal
you
things.
pretend to know about them?
You don't have to pretend. These are normal things that people know these things because they're there. They're things that people know. It's just like when people get false allegations put on them, it's like before people have to actually find out. They have to go through things for people to find out. People will hear stuff and then actually like make real decisions off of it. If it goes to court, you're not 9 times out of 10 you're gonna lose your job if your job finds out,
Okay,
which they most likely are.
yeah, how many people do you think go to trial?
If they're actually getting allegations put on them, then they have to go to court.
No, that's not true.
If they're real allegations, I'm not talking about somebody going online saying, "Hey, this person did this to me." They're like, that's not really allegations. That's just somebody saying something.
Okay, so let me help you out. Um, for every seven, for every, let's say, 100, for every 100 police reports made to the police station about grape, how many do you think lead to a prosecution? Real cases, not false allegations,
Don't
real
know.
cases. You just made it sound like
I'm just gonna be
if it's a
real. I
real
don't know.
allegation that they're going to go to court. You just said that. You made it sound like it's one for one.
No, it's like I'm saying out of I didn't say like you're thinking out of regular people. It's like out of the small amount of people that actually do get false allegations put on them, that are actually like going to
Stop.
court
Stop.
allegations.
Stop. You have to answer my question. My question to you was simple. Out of every 100 men that
I
are
said I don't
reported to the
know.
police, okay, the answer is about 15. 85 men who are reported to the police who actually did it will never get prosecuted. 85% will not
But
get
if they don't
prosecuted.
get prosecuted for it, how do you know they actually did it?
This is based upon looking at cases and the either police or prosecutor determining that they believe it was more likely than not that the grape was real.
But that still doesn't mean that they definitely did it, because they can
You,
prove
you,
that
you
and take
understand
that
you
to the case,
understand
and then
you
the person
understand you
is
can
still
get a
found not
conviction.
guilty.
You understand a conviction does not mean someone definitely did it as well, right? All we're able to
Well,
do
yeah,
is make
that
our
too,
best
but
judgments, right?
like we're talking about.
So the fact that we can never know the truth doesn't mean that we're not able to. We can never know the truth, make the best educated evaluation, and the best estimate, the best evaluation is that out of every 100 actual grapes that are reported to the cops, 85% of the men never get prosecuted. So if 85% of actual grapists never get prosecuted, why do you think Ed, they do get prosecuted? And you
No, I
literally
said
have
the
no
ones
information.
that do get prosecuted and
Okay,
were just
so listen to
taken to
me.
court.
The ones
Majority,
who the ones who do get prosecuted, of the ones who are charged, is far less than 15%. And those are the ones who have a police report. Sorry, 15% of those who have a police report filed. But we know that in terms of all grape, reported and not, only 5% of actual grapists ever get charged, and only 2 to 3% ever go to jail. So why do you think it would be any bigger a number if it's due to false allegations?
because false allegations are different. And
Yeah, they're less likely
you're
to
not
lead to a
talking about the
prosecution.
amount of false allegations that actually like that the person actually gets prosecuted. You're just saying that they alone rarely ruin men's lives. They don't.
Correct.
They majority of the times they do.
Oh my God, you're such a. All right, this is fucking annoying. The majority of times, the vast majority of times, a person never goes to jail. The vast majority of
Because
times,
they don't
vast,
go to
vast,
jail
vast
doesn't mean
majority of times, they
going. They can
never.
go to
Hang
jail and
on,
it not ruin their
Tay.
lives.
Tay, let me finish. The vast, vast, vast majority of men who are falsely accused never go to jail. The vast, vast, vast majority of men who are
That
falsely
still doesn't
accused
mean they can
never get
ruin their lives.
charged. Shut up and let me finish. The vast, 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 vast majority of men who are falsely accused never lose their jobs. The vast, vast, vast majority of men who are falsely accused never lose their family members. The vast, vast, vast majority of men who are falsely accused never lose their close friendships. Now you're saying
You're gonna say they didn't lose their families or their close friendships, though.
because I'm able to ask victims of grape what happened to their rapist. I'm able to ask victims of
But
grape.
that's in your situation, though.
You asked, where do I get the information? My
That's not
information
what
is by
I asked.
polling. My information is by polling grape victims and asking them what were the consequences that happened to the men that you accurately accused. And then my other source for information is when people come in here and claim they're falsely accused, we ask them. And never, not one time over 2.5 years, has any man who was falsely accused ever said that they lost their family or any member of their family or that they lost
Well,
any
if it
close
ruined
friend.
their lives, 9 times out of 10, they wouldn't be on TikTok Live.
9 times out of 10, you love that statistic, don't you? Nine times out of
No,
10, if a man
no, I
is
didn't say
stating
nine
a
times out of
statistic,
10.
it's a bullshit
That's just in
statistic.
my vocabulary. That's just how I talk.
Yeah, well, since we're talking about statistics on this live, let's be more specific. Because you said 9 times out of 10, it's going to ruin a man's life. It doesn't. You're just talking out your ass. You understand you're uneducated on this topic, right?
But it actually does.
Hey,
Majority
Tay, you understand you are uneducated on this topic,
from my standing point of view, no, majority of the
which is
time,
the standing point of view of a moron. You are a moron when it comes to this topic. You don't
okay,
know
and
anyone
you
who's ever
are
been
a dickhead.
accused. You don't know anyone who's ever
You
been
can talk
falsely
like third
accused.
graders if you
You
want to.
don't
You
know
are a
anyone.
dickhead.
You don't know anyone in the media who's been falsely accused. When I'm saying you're a moron, I'm not saying that in a rude way. If you ask me about American football, I'm a moron. I'm not educated on American football. If you call me a moron with regard to American football, why would I get offended? I'm an idiot. I don't know shit. You don't know shit about this topic. Do you like
If I did,
basketball?
why would I be talking
Do
about
you
it?
like basketball?
Sure.
Okay, who's your goat?
Oh my God.
Who's your goat?
LeBron James.
LeBron James. Why?
Cause
He's got
he's
less
actually
scoring titles,
he's
right?
still yeah.
MJ has 10 scoring titles. LeBron's got one. MJ has a record of 6-0 in the finals. LeBron's is 4-6. MJ has Defensive Player of the Year. MJ has more 40-point games than LeBron by a margin of two. MJ has more 50-point games, more 60-point games than LeBron. MJ has mastered both defense and offense at a level that LeBron never has. MJ did all of that with only Scottie Pippen. MJ didn't have to go to other teams in order to create a super team. He didn't have to team hop. He built and worked with what he did. MJ made the people around him better players, whereas LeBron has never elevated another players up. So why is LeBron your GOAT?
I don't know. He really just like I mean, that nigga is old and he's still like he's still
See,
actually
you're
good at
also a
basketball.
moron when it comes to
Whoa.
basketball. See how you have
Whoa.
moronic opinions about a
How?
lot of
I
things.
didn't even I barely started talking and I said like four
Your first
things.
thing was because he's good and he's old.
No, I
That's your
didn't
first
say I
reason why
said
LeBron is the GOAT?
No, I said he's actually still is. He's actually good at basketball, and I said that nigga is
Being good
actually
at
old because I
basketball
just
makes
thought
you the
about it.
GOAT. Okay, so give me
No,
your arguments.
I
Give me your
started that, and
arguments
then
why LeBron is the GOAT. Do you see how you have a
all
lot
right
of opinions about
now,
shit you really don't know anything about?
I, bro, bro,
I'm just saying, do you notice how you're very opinionated, but you also don't know a lot?
I'll talk to you for 30 seconds, not even 30 seconds about basketball.
I'm asking, what is your arguments that LeBron is the GOAT? Because he's old? Like, do you have another argument?
All right, that did look bad, but like
That's what I'm saying. So
that
you have
really
to
wasn't
be,
my
I know
argument. It
this is
was
hard
like
for
I
you,
was
man.
just I
You have
thought
to
about
be
it. All right, that did look bad, but and I said,
humble. You got to be humble, dude. You got to be humble. And you know the way that sometimes you'll see on TV as a joke or in a movie? That fat, ugly, bald dude sitting on a couch who's shouting at a television, telling the quarterback how to play the game. Did you ever see that? And it's like, dude, you're a fat, bald dude who's 50 on a couch, and you think you could play better fucking football than the quarterback? And they look stupid because they have strong opinions about things they know nothing about. And you're not coming up here from a place of knowledge. You don't know shit about this topic. And instead of asking questions, you're literally stating what you are purporting to be facts. Do you hear what I'm saying? You're making it sound like these are facts. These are not facts. These are uninformed opinions. An uninformed opinion has no more value than a piece of toilet paper I've wiped my ass with. Opinions only matter when they have facts to back them up or experience to back them up, right? Like if you're a big fat bald ugly dude on a couch talking about football, if you know nothing about football, your opinion is as valuable as a shit stained piece of toilet paper. So you coming up here saying this is what happens when a man is accused. You've never been accused. You've never known a man who's accused. You've never known a woman who's accused a man. You don't know a single public case where a man's been falsely accused. And your response is, but I bet if I go look for the information, it'll be there. Well, maybe if you go look for the information, you can come back and tell me why LeBron is your GOAT. But until you have it at your fingertips, it's an uninformed piece of shit opinion. I'm not trying to attack you, man. I'm trying to help you realize you sound stupid and you shouldn't want to sound stupid. It's not a hot look. Don't be that fat bald white dude on a couch screaming at the television. Be the dude who says, "Hey, why do you think that?" Be the dude who asks question. Like, do you think what I'm saying is insane, or are you like, that's not a bad point?
it's not a bad point.
That's all. It's all right to be wrong, man. And it's all right to not know everything. Once you look into this shit, it's fucking mind blowing. It's like, did you know that as a dude, you're more likely to be graped by another dude? There's a higher likelihood of you being graped by another dude than there is of you being falsely accused. Yet I know if someone asked me, do I have a preference? I'd rather get falsely accused than be raped by another dude. But I never hear men saying they're scared of being raped, ever. Even though they're more likely to be raped by another dude, I've never heard another man tell me they're scared of being raped. But I have heard men tell me, I'm terrified my reputation will be ruined if a bitch lies on my name. Something that will very likely never
Yeah.
happen. And these are fake stories we
I mean,
tell each
that's a
other.
valid thing to be scared of, though.
Okay, I think fear is a combination of how bad it would be and how likely it is. And in this case, to be falsely accused is likely not going to be very harmful and in this most situations, and it's highly unlikely to ever happen to you. Now, if you've ever had specific trauma, then I can understand it. But you understand the difference in a rational fear and an irrational fear.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is irrational for you to be scared to step in the ocean because you're afraid of being eaten by a shark. Because the chance of you being bit by a shark, you're more likely to be hit by lightning. It is more dangerous for you to walk in a park than it is for you to swim in the ocean. That is an irrational fear. Now, if you were a kid who went to the ocean and you got bit by a fish one time, it would be an irrational fear, but it would be based upon your personal trauma. And that makes it not less rational, but more understandable, right? So, like, if you've had a bad experience with the ocean, then you being scared of the ocean, even if it's likely to never happen to you again, it's at least understandable why you have that bad opinion. Otherwise, it's an irrational opinion. And I think it's irrational for men to fear things that are highly unlikely to ever happen.
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of the times when dudes like say that they're like scared of like women like lying on them, they really like they are scared, but they don't really like change anything. Like they say that they're scared, but they still do the same things. It's like
Do you know why?
because they're not really scared of it. It's just a thing that they know if it happens, it's a bad thing to happen.
Nope. It's because if they keep saying they're scared of being falsely accused, they know that if they're falsely accused, then they know if they're ever accused of doing something wrong, that they get to say accused. Then they know if they're ever accused of doing something wrong, that they get to say it was fake. They're laying the groundwork, Tay, laying the groundwork, Tay, that if they ever get accused, that they can say, see, told you the groundwork, Tay, that if they ever get accused, that they can say, see, told you women lie, because you're right. If they're actually scared, why do they still keep fucking with women? They're not scared. They just want to make people think women are lying hoes. And don't get me wrong, some women lie, but are you going to tell me fucking men don't lie all the time? Men lie all the fucking time.
Dude, dude, nowadays at least men lie way more than females.
And it's not that women don't lie. I'm not saying women don't lie, but it's this weird fucking crazy idea that women are going around lying all the fucking time about grape. It happens sometimes, without question. It does.
Usually when women lie, it's about like cheating and stuff. It's like something like more like I don't know, but like it's not usually like something like that.
All I would say is that when you prop up this idea, Tay, when you go around saying a man's life is going to be ruined by an allegation, you are scaring women from talking about being raped, because when they say, hey, this guy raped me, the response from the men is going to be, well, I believe you, but we can't go around telling other people because we don't want to hurt his reputation. And like, like think about it. If your sister came to you and said someone raped, I can guarantee you you're not going to give two shits about the guy's reputation. But if a woman came to you and said one of your friends raped her, you'd be like, yeah, I don't want to ruin the guy's life by saying that out loud.
No, I'm just asking.
All right, I'm just saying, well, the rapist is likely not going to tell you the truth. Listen,
I
Tay,
mean,
I
still,
appreciate.
I'ma still ask him though. I
I,
got to ask him. It's like
I get you got to ask them, but like understand that we have looked at this from a statistic standpoint, and the highest percentage that's ever been found of false allegations is 1 out of 10. So what that means is, if you ask a dude, "Did you grape that woman?" 100% of the time they're going to say no, right? 100% of the time they're going
they're
to say
gonna
no,
say no. They're gonna say no.
but
But like,
90% of the time they're lying.
yeah, but like,
So
I
why
don't know. I
ask?
mean, that our stuff is real. Like, you can't like straight up be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna know, but off of his eyes, like, but like sometimes they will actually like get scared and
They
like
will
actually like
absolutely agree. I and
they'll
I,
do it. They'll do
dude,
it.
I will give you props for admitting what you just said, which is that we all think we can tell a liar, but we can't. So fucking big W for you. What you just said, which is you recognizing that, because lots of people are like, I have a special skill. No, you don't. But you're right. Sometimes we do see it. You're right. Sometimes we do. So there is a purpose in asking. Tay, I'm going to drop you down, man. I am also going to say, are you dating or married?
I'm not married.
All right. Different way of putting it then. You're not dating, but you're kind of with someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Just a tip, dude. Calling women females, like I know that like different people may use it and shit. It's not going to get you laid. People don't like to be called females. I would just recommend you call them women, just as a heads up. Like not being aggro with you at all. It's just like it's like you don't go around saying males, right? You go around saying men. So just a tip, not a big deal. Just a tip. Women don't like being called females. Just as a heads up.
Yeah.
Just a heads up. Just trying to help you get laid, my guy. It's all to help you. All right. I'm gonna drop you down in the comments. Thanks,
All right.
Ryan. What's your take, and why are you so scared about fellas being falsely accused?
I'm not scared. Nice to meet you, by the way.
To
What
be
I'm
determined.
intrigued about, what I'm intrigued about with your prompt is, it looks like you're pushing away from the conversation about false allegations in general. Would you not say that a woman that does put a false allegation in against a man needs to be imprisoned, and she needs to suffer the same vigor under the law that the man would face if he had committed that crime?
That's a great point. I want to be a man who grapes a 10-year-old girl should go to jail for the same amount of time as a woman who says something that is untrue. Correct?
Elaborate.
Do I have to? Sure. All right. Let me elaborate. Grape is bad, Ryan. When it comes to the grape of 10-year-old girls, I don't want to like invalidate
No, no, no.
other
Listen.
victims,
I got what you were
but the
saying.
grape
The
of a
reason I
10 year
said
old
elaborate,
child, I imagine, would be done by someone who is a devil, someone who is not safe in society, someone who could literally unalive anyone, someone who is a danger to everyone around
do
them,
you mind
right?
for a moment? I don't mean to be
No.
rude.
Hang on. I'll finish since you would need me to elaborate. So I personally think it's fucking crazy to say a 40-year-old man that would violently and forcibly grape a 10-year-old child has done something equal to a woman who said words out of her mouth that were not true. That seems
Okay.
crazy to me. That's a weird take.
Okay, no problem. I'm actually glad you elaborated for me. So let me actually try wrap
Oh,
your
that helped you.
ideology
All right, go
around
ahead.
my head. With all due respect, just hear me out on this, and then maybe actually glad you elaborated for me. So let me reflect on it for a moment
Well, as
before
an
you
Irish
reply to
fella,
me.
you're going to need a lot of bandages. We have big
Just reply
heads,
to me
but go
from
on.
after this and try to reflect on it, right? So you're telling me, which is completely understandable, that if a 40-year-old man grapes a 10-year-old child, he should go to jail for a long time. I agree. However, what you're trying to justify right there is it's okay for women to lie if a man had or had
How
not
did I
ever
justify that?
committed rape against them. And you're trying to justify that by
How did I
saying
justify it?
that words coming out of her mouth is nowhere near the same amount of damage that a man can do when he grapes a woman. Of course it is. It's character assassination. You're
So
well aware of that.
wait. Hang on. I want to be clear. You are saying that the damage done to a 10-year-old through the violent, forcible grape by a 40-year-old man is as harmful to that child as it is to a man where a woman has said false words out of her mouth.
Not what I said.
Is
What I'm
that's
trying. No,
verbatim
no,
what
no,
you
no.
said?
Listen, I'll clarify for you. That's
Yeah,
not
go
what I
for it.
said. What I'm saying is the
Verbatim what
fact
you
that you
said.
would even bring the conversation to a 40-year-old man and a 10-year-old girl, okay, makes no sense whatsoever. You understood my opinion and it made valid sense. If a woman lies about a man committing such an atrocious crime, and it's proven without a shadow of a doubt through a court of law that she lied, she should suffer the same fate that man would have suffered being locked up in prison. And if you're whatsoever, you're justifying the assassination of a man's character, and men's reputation is what holds their entire lives. And you're well aware of that. Would you not agree?
No, I think you sound fucking stupid. But let's go back on what you were
Oh,
just
I
saying
sound
so that
stupid.
we can.
Typical.
Yeah, you did
So
sound
what
stupid.
happens?
So let me
Answer me
hang on.
this. What would happen
Can
if
I
a woman?
respond?
Hang on. I want to ask you a question. What
Okay,
would
I
you
won't
say is the
respond.
best
Go ahead.
path going forward if a woman? Answer me
Hang on.
this. What would happen if
I
a woman
respond?
lied about a man raping her?
Oh, I can get to that, but I'm not there yet. By the way, Claire, you now have access to the purgatory chat. So I just want to really hold you to the fire on this. You have said now a couple of times that a woman who simply says that man raped me when it's untrue, you believe that that woman is as evil or culpable as a 40-year-old man who violently and physically grapes a 10-year-old child, and you are claiming that the harm done by the 40-year-old man physically and forcibly graping the 10-year-old child is as bad as the woman simply saying the words, he graped me. 3 words out of her mouth.
No, you added
That
in the
is what you said.
4-year-old
You
and
said they should go
10-year-old
to
version.
jail for the same amount of time, correct?
Listen to me if you don't mind. You've asked
Sure,
a
but hang
question.
on. I'll
I
ask the
never
question
brought in the
again.
40-year-old and
You
10-year-old.
said
I
they
just
should
simply
go to
stated a man and a
jail
woman.
for the same amount of time, correct?
I said a man and a woman. I never brought in this hypothetical situation containing a 40-year-old man and a 10-year-old child. That's a despicable crime.
But
I cannot
I'm
even
sorry, do you
dare to
think
say that
raping women is
listen,
not a
I
despicable
cannot even
crime?
dare to say that that's its scenario.
A despicable crime.
Of course it is.
Okay, do you think that a 40-year-old man who grapes a 10-year-old child is demonstrably different than a 40-year-old man who grapes an 18-year-old?
Yes.
Explain.
When you're a child, you have your innocence. Don't get me wrong. It's
You
going to be
think
quite hard for me to
18-year-olds
word
don't
this and for
have
people to
innocence?
take it as an understandable point of view. But when you're a child and you have
I
an
mean,
innocent
well,
mind,
hang on. Your literal username is Irish debates. So you should be able to find the right words. I believe in you, Ryan.
oh, I have the right words. I'm just trying to approach the situation with the right mindset and taking into consideration people's feelings if they're on this live and they've suffered from that or
Mm-hmm.
from anything in their family that could relate to this situation.
How
Okay,
gracious
I'm
of
just
you to
being
do that
appropriate in the
after you
conversation. Now,
told
listen,
them.
I'm not justifying the scenario with the 40-year-old man and the 10-year-old child compared to what my original statement was coming on. So ask me your question and I'll go ahead. I'm just saying let's have a reasonable discussion.
Okay, sure, I'll do this then. You're saying that if a 40-year-old man breaks into the home of an 18-year-old woman and forcibly and violently grapes her over the next 4 days, you would say that he is as bad and should do the same amount of time as if in a situation an 18-year-old woman comes out and says about some 40-year-old man, he graped me. You said they should do the same amount of time and that they're equally harmful.
Just to clarify, in this scenario, it's not the one with the 40-year-old and the 10-year-old, right? This is just a general.
I just said an
Okay, yeah, no, I'm
18-year-old
just
and a
clarifying. Yeah,
40-year-old.
just clarifying. Yes, I would tell you they should do the same time, and I'll tell you why. As wild as people are going to take this opinion and this standpoint, because a woman lying about a man, it carries with him apologies for the rest of his life. It's a character assassination, and a woman only does that because she believes she has the power over the man. She's trying to hold him accountable until she gets what she wants when he's done nothing wrong. It's perverted. It's absolutely a perversion of someone's mind to think that they can take control and have authority over a man like that as if they
How
are
dare
special.
they?
It's sickening. How dare they? It's
Yeah,
sickening.
women should know their
It's
place.
the
Yeah.
same. It's the same if a man is going to grape a woman. I don't
It's
think
the same.
it's an illogical standpoint to say that both of the crimes are both sickening.
Great. So do you turn on your camera ever?
I do, sometimes, yes.
I'd like you to say it with your chest. If you really believe this, you believe in free speech, I would appreciate it if you're going to be. I'd like you to say it with your chest. Addressing a group of 100 people, the majority of which are victims. If you're going to tell them that it's the same harm and it's the same level of culpability, I'd love it if you could put on your camera and do so.
When did I say the word harm?
I mean, did you not say it's the same harm? So you agree it's different harm? I thought you just said it's as harmful because a man's reputation is the most important thing to a man. And if he has that ruined, it'll be ruined for the rest of his life. I thought
Listen,
that was you talking about his harm.
it's extremely obvious what I'm trying to say, but you're
So it's
trying to
not equally
deconstruct the
harmful.
entire argument.
So it's not equally
The
harmful.
exact level of harm will be different. Okay?
I'm so confused right now. You don't want to turn on your camera, correct?
With due respect, no, because I'm trying to put across a reasonable argument and I feel like you're completely disregarding it. So I'm going to bow out with respect. But
I mean, you're
I'm just
bowing
saying I
out
don't
because you're
stand for the
really
grape
shit.
of,
I mean, you're
I'm just
bowing
saying I
out
don't
because you're
stand
a
for the
really
grape of
shit
women
debater.
whatsoever. I think
You're
it's
bowing out
despicable.
because you're a pussy who
No,
can't
no, I'm
debate.
not actually. No, I'm not. And you can
Okay, so
insult me
why
all
don't
you
you
want.
actually make your argument? Because you've been going back and forth. You have been saying that they should do the same jail time. I asked you specifically. I couldn't have been more specific. Do you
Okay, so let
think
me be
they're
specific with you then. I
equally?
won't drop. No problem. Just be
Sure.
quiet.
So
I
I'll
will
be
not drop.
super
You be
specific.
specific
I
with me. Are
gave
you
you the
justifying
specific
a woman who
scenarios.
can lie about a man's character and say that
I
he
gave you the
falsely raped
specific
her?
scenario. Hang on. I will answer your question if you answer mine.
You answer mine, so I know you're
I
genuine.
already asked yours. I already asked the question, but you haven't given me a clear answer. You've gone back and forth on the answer. My question was, in a situation where a 40-year-old man breaks into your house, grapes a woman over a 4-day period, an 18-year-old woman, versus a situation where an 18-year-old merely, specifically only says, that man raped me, or he raped me, 3 words, right? My
Okay.
questions were, A, should they do the same time? I thought you said yes. B, my question was, do you think that the people who were the victims in both cases were equally harmed? And C, do you think that the perpetrators of each of those crimes are equally culpable? And by culpable, I don't mean responsible, I mean evil, bad, malicious,
Okay.
worthy of moral condemnation.
One, they are equally culpable.
Well,
Two,
let's go back.
no,
No, evil, bad, malicious.
they're
First
not
question
equal.
was, should
Listen,
they do the same time?
should they do the same time? No, but they should be punished.
Nobody disagrees with that. Should they do the same time? You said yes at the beginning.
Okay.
So now you're admitting you're
No.
changing your
No,
stance, which is
no,
good of
no,
you.
I'm not. Listen, I came up and I was frustrated because I'll be quite honest, it sounded like you were trying to be disingenuous. If you're willing to have a reasonable conversation, no problem. What I'm trying to say is this: a woman lying about rape.
No, stop.
No, no, no. I'm
No,
not.
you're
I'm answering your
pivoting.
question.
You're not. I asked 3 very clear questions.
Okay, go
A,
ahead and
you're
shoot
saying
as
they should
quickly as you can.
not do the same time. And I assume if you're saying they should not do the same time, you're saying the rapist should do more time, correct?
Of course, the rapist should do more time.
Oh, of course now. Okay. At the beginning, you were saying it should be equal time. Now, are you also saying that the harm is equal? Or are you going to admit that being a rape victim is
It
far
would be
fucking
in a
worse?
logical statement to say that the harm is equal. There are all different types of harm: psychological,
Relatively the
physical,
same.
relevant to the situation.
Is it
Let me finish.
relevantly on average the same?
Why are you being disingenuous? You've asked
How's
me a
that
question, you're not letting me
disingenuous?
finish.
Because you're not answering the question.
I literally just answered your question. You said,
No,
should
you
it be
said you
equal? And I said,
can't
no, it should
answer the
not be
question.
equal.
No, the second question was, is the relative harm on average done to the victim, one victim of rape, one victim of someone having the words, you raped me, being said, is that harm relatively on average the same? Because you said earlier it was.
That's a difficult one to try and.
Is it?
No, it's not the same. However, it's
Which is
still an
worse?
immeasurable
Which is
crime
worse?
morally.
Which is worse? I didn't ask
What?
about moral. I asked
Which
you
is worse?
the harm.
The harm is the situation where the person has experienced rape.
I didn't ask you to. Oh, that's the worst harm, is what you're saying.
Of course, that would be the worst harm, but I'm trying to
I would
put
agree
it
with the
out.
word of course, but
Can
that's
I?
not what you said 10 minutes ago, Ryan. You got to be more careful
Jesus
with your
Christ.
words when you're addressing a
Wait,
platform.
every
Remember you
time I
said
talk,
that?
you're cutting me off. I'm trying to have a calm conversation about it, okay? And you're trying to attack everything I'm saying without even letting me finish my point of view so you
Seems a
can
bit
get an
sensitive, but
understanding
go
of what
on.
I'm saying, okay? Obviously, a situation where someone has been raped is going to have a long-standing effect on them. They're going to suffer from post-traumatic stress, all types of traumatic events in their brain that they will have to try and get there. And one, lie that you've been raped, not just because of the fact that you're doing it against a man,
Hang
but
on.
two,
Stop,
because you're
stop,
taking
stop.
away.
We're
Hang
not
on.
finished with the three questions. And I think you've
There you go,
jumped to the
cutting me off
last
again.
question.
Nothing
Hang
new
on.
there, huh?
No, the victim of rape is much worse off. The next question is the culpability of said no. The victim of rape is much worse off. The next question is the culpability of the perp. Do you think a woman who says the words, you raped me, is as malicious as the words, you raped me, is as malicious or evil or immoral as a 40-year-old man who breaks into a house and rapes a woman violently for a 4-day period?
Okay, we may have came around to each other on the first 2 points, but the third one we're definitely not going to agree on. I'll tell you straight away. I'm
So you think they're
definitely
the
right.
same?
Yes, they are both equally the same.
So let me ask you this question. This question. Um, if you had to choose, and when you say equally the same, what that means
Equally as
is that
evil.
you think that the people are both
Equally as
equally
evil.
evil, equally great. So I want to be clear. If you were in an emergency situation and you had to leave your sister or your mother or your children with a woman who has uttered the words, you raped me, when it was a lie, or a 40-year-old man who's violently and physically raped a woman for a 4-day period, being that they're both equally evil, I assume you would toss a coin to determine which one you would prefer to do that, correct?
No, I just wouldn't leave my child or my sister with either of those individuals. What type of question is that? Why are you trying to
You think it
justify
would
it?
be equally likely that the woman who said, you raped me and told a lie, you believe it would be equally likely that a liar would be as harmful to your kids, your sister, or your mother as a violent rapist?
I can't believe I actually have to say this, but yes, and let me tell you why without you cutting me off. The fact that
Please
a
do.
woman's mind can be that twisted and morally inept says to me straight away she's just as dangerous as that other sick, violent offender.
So you
And if you
think
try to say anything of the like that's against that, there's something wrong with you in the head.
so you
That
think
woman,
liars are
listen,
just
listen,
as
listen.
bad as
That
violent
woman could
rapists?
physically harm the child. You don't know what she could do. When you
So
have a mind
again, you
like that
think
and the
that
way your mind
liars are
thinks,
you think liars are as bad as rapists?
stop trying to dumb it down to just liars. A woman
I'm
that
sorry, you
tries to
think that
falsely
women
accuse
who
a man of
lie on the
raping her
man's
has a
name,
sick mindset and mentality
you
in the first
believe
place.
women who lie on a man's name are as evil as violent rapists, correct?
Say
That's
again.
what you're saying. I know what, Ryan, I'm not trying to get you on a got you, right? When
You
I
are.
say what you're saying, it sounds really fucking stupid to you, but that's because I'm putting a fine point on the really fucking stupid thing coming out of your mouth. If what I'm saying
So
sounds
what
really
is stupid
stupid,
about that?
you need to stop saying really fucking stupid shit.
Okay, what is stupid? Let me ask you this, and then you respond, right? Let's be fair here.
Sure.
What is stupid about saying that a woman who has lied about a man falsely raping her is equally as malicious and dangerous and of ill intent, possibly towards my child, as a violent male offender? Would you not agree that her mentality and her mindset is sickening enough to say she's unpredictable and as dangerous as someone that is sick and malicious in his mind as a male offender?
No, and I'm very confident. I'm almost most of the women in your household would say you're a fucking scumbag
You're
for
okay.
suggesting that.
Now tell me why they would say that, because maybe
Sure,
equating the two
because the
makes
man
no
has shown
sense.
a
Would you
complete
agree?
disres.
No,
Sure,
no.
the man
Okay.
has shown a complete disregard for physical boundaries. The man has shown a complete disregard for any sort of
If
respect
you don't mind, so
for.
you agreed with me that equating the two it makes no sense, correct?
There's literally no comparison.
Exactly. So why the fuck are you asking me in the first place about these scenarios?
You just said they're the same.
It's
You
for a
equated
point.
them.
It's to get to a point. You are trying to go
You
against
hang on,
the
stop.
exact point I
You
came up on this panel
equated them.
with,
You said
asking
they
me the
were the
most
same.
stupid scenarios
You
ever.
said they were the same. I didn't make that argument. You did.
You have to
You
remember
said
why I
that the
came up on
harm
this
was the
panel in the
same.
first place.
You
A
said the man and the
simple
woman should
thing.
go to jail for
A
the same amount
woman
of
that
time.
lies
And you
about being
said that the
raped by a
man and the
man
woman are
is sick in the
equally
head.
evil.
Do you oppose that?
I was talking when you interrupted me. Go ahead.
Do you oppose a woman who lies about being raped by a man going to jail?
Based upon what you just said, the limited set
It's
of
that simple, just
facts,
yes or no.
based upon the facts you just stated, absolutely no.
So you would
Do you
agree
want
with
to
a woman?
ask why?
Would you agree or disagree with a woman going to jail if she lied about being raped by a
Absolutely
man?
disagree. Do you want to know why?
So you would disagree with her being punished under the law? No problem. Go ahead. Tell me
Correct.
what.
Sure. Had you added that she made a false police report, had you added that the man had been arrested, had you added that the man went to jail, that could have been a different answer. But you said her simply lying. I don't think you should go to jail for telling a lie. And it's kind of wild to me that I have to explain this to someone whose bio literally says advocate of freedom of speech, bro.
Listen,
It's
are you like slow in
wild
the
to
head or
me that
something?
I have
Her
to
lying would
explain
have to
to
be
someone
proven in a court of
who
law in order
believes
for
that
her
they're
to
an
be sent to jail in
advocate
the
of
first
free
place. Are you
speech
slow in the head?
that they should not go to jail for telling a lie. Are you fucking insane? So you believe that someone who tells a lie should go to jail? Oh, I would run as well, Ryan. You little bitch. You disappointment. Oh, I would run as well, Ryan. You little bitch. You disappointment. You little mammy's boy. Only an Irishman would know what I meant by that. You fucking mammy's boy. You got wrecked. You got this. You got wrecked. You got destroyed. You looked stupid. You fucking gobshite. A passion. What's up? What's your age? You?
I am 27.
Okay, great. What's your take? By the way, I match energy. So please don't take the energy I had directed towards that absolute. So please don't take the energy I had directed towards that absolute moron to mean that I'm going to continue that energy towards you. Go ahead.
That's fine. I actually I feel kind of silly now because I agree with you. I was actually hoping I was able to talk to this Ryan guy and maybe put it into perspective a little bit about like what if he was able to talk to this Ryan guy and maybe put it into perspective a little bit about like what if he were in that situation. Um,
Go
I
ahead.
try and speak other people's languages, because I feel like there's a cognitive dissonance that happens there, and they can only really see from their point of view. Um, so yeah, I'm sorry. I
No, no,
didn't
no.
mean to.
So we look, we do things in different ways, right? Um,
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I
no, no,
didn't
no.
mean to.
So we look, we do things in different ways, right? My approach with this kind of thing is he is one of these on debate talk we would call them Phil Bros. On debate talk we would call them Phil Bros. But he's like an Irish version of it, and what I mean by that is he is carrying on this misogynistic idea that life by that is he is carrying on this misogynistic idea that life decisions about behaviors and actions of people should not consider emotion or empathy. And he is someone who consider emotion or empathy. And he is someone who tries to break all human behavior down into reason and logic. And I would argue that it's unreasonable and illogical to talk about human behavior without talking about human emotion and empathy. And what I tend to find is best with that type of person is to just make them look and feel stupid. You wanted to go the more humane approach. Personally, I only find it useful to do the more humane approach when you think the person you're talking to has humanity. I don't think it's useful to do the more humane approach when he has humanity. I don't know if you saw earlier or how long you've been watching, but we've had people join who are grapey guys who are saying grapey things, but you're able to reach them by making them think about it from their perspective. Think about it from like how it would hurt them or their parents or their loved ones. I personally think that he's one of these automatons who lacks emotion of any kind and could not be reached in that way. Personally. So I appreciate where you're coming from. Yeah, Ryan, no shit you were accused of grape. No shit you were accused of grape. Everyone in here who's had experience with people who talk like you know that you were accused of grape. But nobody believes it was false. You grapey cunt. You fucking Amadon. You walking disappointment. But a passionate, we do these lives every day. You walking disappointment. I do think that people have different approaches. So your approach, I think, is valid. I just think that like I try to switch it up based on who I'm talking to.
I think that's fair. If you're talking to a non-empathetic person, why would you try and appeal to their empathy?
It almost becomes perverse because they get off on being inhumane. There's a pride they have in denying the emotion and empathy. And so I feel like when I try to get them to empathize, it just becomes cruel to victims in the comments because they just denigrate the humanity of it over and over again. If that makes sense. Cruel to victims in the comments because they just denigrate the humanity of it over and over again. If that makes sense. And you'll never get through to them that way. And like, despite the performative aspect of me like insulting him, my goal is to like reach people that way. And like, despite the performative aspect of me like insulting him, my goal is to like reach people. My goal is to get people to really understand. So in a situation where I see, someone like him, like he's got raging small dick energy. In a situation where I see someone like him, like he's got raging small dick energy, big ego, and he needs to be dressed down. He needs to be reminded he's a fucking walking loser, and it's only when he has that crisis where he starts realizing that he himself is not right that he can start listening to other people. And so that's why I take that specific approach with men like that, because he's the type of man who will say, men are strong, men are leaders, while being a little bitch who works in super value or something. He is the type of guy who views himself as more important, smarter, and more valuable than he actually is. And so I think it's valuable to dress that down and make them realize that they're not that important. And then it's really weird. One out of three of the times, people in the comments, if people in the comments who watch these lives can validate this, one out of three or one out of five times, these men who think that they're so fucking big and strong, they turn over and become submissive kittens and then just do whatever it is I want. It's fucking weird. But once you've like broken their ego, they now look at you like a leader and they just start fucking listening to you. It's fucking creepy. But it does work. And that's sort of the approach we take on these lives.
I do think that makes sense.
It's fucking weird though.
It is really bizarre, but I feel like it's kind of the same thing we see in like I'm in the US. I see that your name on here is Irish. But you sound American, so I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
I've lived
carry on
in
with that.
America for a very long time.
Okay, well, our military here, it's filled with a bunch of macho, tough, strong, stoic guys, but they all kind of bow down to the dude in charge, and it kind of sounds like Ryan may have had that kind of energy.
The most misogynistic men practice submission, and they just all wish that they were the top dog, and they all like to think of themselves as the top dog, and that's why, like, often so much of male culture is validating one another. There's a lot of like clapping each other on the back so that everyone feels like they're important, like there's a group mentality to it, which is when you pull one of them out of the group. When you take away that security blanket, they just it's like you take away their spine. They just fold over. It's like honestly embarrassing. It's pathetic.
Yeah, it is definitely a sight to behold.
So do you
It's
do these type of not my type of live, but do you talk about these kind of issues at all, or was this just an issue to cut your attention?
um I regularly have these conversations. I do lives with a gentleman named Jermaine on here, which is a little bit different, but kind of fits in to the conversation of the topic here. So I believe that everything is nuanced and it all kind of meshes together in a way. It's systemic, I believe is the word.
Yep.
So yeah, I do regularly have these conversations, and it's important for me to have these conversations. I'm a mom, I would like to keep my kids educated, so that way they don't turn out to be crappy people in the future that hurt others. And also, it's just nice to get some other people's perspectives, just in case I'm not considering something I should be considering. So.
And do you have a specific approach or goal in how you do it? Because I know that when people first see my lives, they're like, "What the fuck is going on?" And I've come to just understand everyone does this sort of from a different perspective. So, for example, you try to use empathy to reach people, which means I would suspect your lives are a little bit more civil. Your lives are more personal in nature, less about statistics. Like that would just be a guess. But I know that people can do this sort of advocacy in different ways. So how do you approach it from your standpoint?
Both. I do believe to be an emotional person that appeals to people's feelings and emotions myself. But I do bring factual evidence, statistics, even sometimes anecdotal experiences to back my claims and my arguments.
I mean, you have to, because the guys don't really put much value in that sort of subjective experience, unfortunately.
No, no, they love logic. Logic is the only thing they can bother to pay attention to or have an open ear to. So I need that with me, especially when the people who aren't really aware of these things are simply creating their opinions out of nowhere. So it is
I
important.
I had the insight like 2 years ago or so when doing these lives, when I confronted these Philbro people who like are the epitome of logic and reason. And what I started realizing was that this whole idea of being hyper focused on logic and reason to the exclusion of empathy and emotion really it's either a tool of misogyny or a tool of the patriarchy or something that is used like a glue to prop it up because it is often used to invalidate personal experiences. It's often used to invalidate women. It's often used in order to invalidate subjective harm. And it's why I have had some success in pointing out to people that if you want to focus on reason and logic, that it is unreasonable and illogical to talk about human behavior without thinking about human emotion. And that's the only way I've gotten them to sort of move away from logic and reason because it's crazy to me. These fucking idiots can talk about grape and say, let's not talk about emotion. And it's like, what do you think the harm of grape is? Like, women don't go around 4 years later ordinarily talking about the physical harm that happened to them. Ordinarily, it's exactly the emotional harm. And so
Yeah.
when you communicate to them that it's illogical to talk about human behavior in the absence of emotion, I have found that can trip them up a little bit.
Yeah, this kind of bleeds into the conversation of male victims as well. Oftentimes they will also invalidate male victims. And then I'll regularly find men that have been told by other men to just let it go, get over it. They probably liked it, whatever. That's not what they experienced, and they actually enjoyed it, and that they should just never talk about it again. And because they don't get the sympathy from other men, women be open to having those kind of conversations, just kind of pissed off that whenever we have those safe spaces for ourselves, they will invalidate those experiences because they were invalidated.
Yeah, it's almost like they genuinely feel threatened by the idea that anyone other than themselves could be validated. And I think it's because, sure thing, Atlantic. I think it's because of the fact that I've talked about this before that people who kind of like have power, they view any sort of accommodation as a form of power. Because when people are saying, hey, can you not do this anymore? And the thing they're being asked not to do is something that's just fucking harmful, they view that request as a source of power. And so the more they see people other than themselves being validated in having grievances, the more they know that they're going to feel like they have to accommodate. And that's why I think they feel so driven to shut it down, if that makes sense. I feel like that's why they feel so driven to invalidate those spaces. Or it's sadistically fucked up reasons, like they enjoy seeing victims be hurt by their words.
Yes, 100%. Have you ever heard of trauma fishing?
No, I instantly know what you mean, and I'm totally stealing that though.
Yeah, I actually didn't know what it meant until I came across a video on my For You page, and I went into the comments and I saw a woman sharing her experience, and it wasn't going too much into detail, but I did see quite a few men asking her to go into detail, like they were getting some kind of sick pleasure out of listening to those very personal, traumatic bits and pieces of her experience. And I've noticed this a lot more since a woman had commented to me, and after me asking, like, why would you ask that? And she was like, he's just trauma farming, he's just trauma fishing, like this is something that gets him off. And I was genuinely horrified. I I had to log off for that entire day because these things are kind of exhausting to see, but I feel like they need to be seen, otherwise that whole conversation, like it has been for many years, will be pushed under the rug once again. And we obviously know what happens when that occurs. Like, women have been drugged up for years trying to release themselves from some of these traumas that they couldn't cope with in the past.
I mean, I strongly agree with you. I'd never heard that term before. The prevalence of those people is kind of crazy to me. And I've been doing these lives for about 2.5 years, and I do them with a woman named Mac. And when we used to start doing them, again, I feel like everyone does advocacy, and I don't consider myself an advocate, but everyone does lives like this in different ways. And what we realized was that when we do these type of lives, what often happens is women want to come in and share their stories. And when we first started doing this, we had women join our panels and share their stories. And they often do it for like a couple of reasons. One is because they want to reach the guy. They want the guy to feel it because they're thinking that if the man just feels it, maybe they'll grow a fucking heart. Unfortunately, it doesn't always happen. And the other reason why a woman will often want to come up is they just want to share it. They just want a space to be able to get the words out. And Mac and I used to have our space, bring women up, and if they wanted to share their story, we thought, hey, we're a space that kind of does attract more survivors and victims, so we should accommodate that. And what we very quickly started seeing was there was men in the comments who were getting off on it, literally getting off on it, and that they would be asking questions, and we didn't pick up on it at first. Like, people would be asking questions, and then we'd realize it's the same person asking the same questions on another live. And then we just started picking up on the fact there were guys who literally get off on having women join panels and talk about their grape. And so that's why, like, I have the word opposition only up there because we don't let that happen anymore. We just don't let women join to share their story anymore because of that trauma fishing, which again I'm totally stealing because it's so frequent. Like, in this live right now with 87 people, I guarantee you there's a few men in here who are listening just because they get off on it. Just like, don't get me wrong, like the analogy of that would be there's someone in here right now named Miss Misandry. She's in here because she gets off on the men being tortured. So don't get me wrong, there is other groups of people in here who get off on the torturing part. Miss Misandry gets off on the men being tortured, but there's some men in here who get off on women sharing horribly traumatic things. And it's fucking gross. Like, genuinely fucking gross. And unfortunately, the weird, creepy part about it is they don't make it super obvious. Like, a lot of the times, they're literally just like asking questions. And like, it really did take us a couple of weeks to be like, oh no, this is, I don't know if it's a sexual kink or like a power thing. Like, I don't know what type of perversion it is. Like, I genuinely don't know if like they are actually touching themselves. I actually literally don't know if that may be the extreme of it, or they just like sitting there listening to women being emotional. I don't know what it is, but they enjoy it. Like, they're seeking it out, and there's something fucking terrifying about that.
It like absolutely horrifying. And I think a couple things about that. I think we live among sadists, genuinely, and enjoyment from both parties. These are experiences that are clearly not enjoyed by the victim. So I do believe, and I think that they get more excited hearing about it rather than like going onto their weird websites to find something that was played out to look non-consensual. I think they genuinely get enjoyment from listening to people being held up against their will, which is terrifying, absolutely horrifying. I do believe that I've already seen a couple people in the comments that may fit that kind of description. And I did hear you mention Miss Sandry. I've been following her for a while now. Big fan of her and her
She's
content.
dangerous to men. Don't trust her at all. I would unfollow her straight away.
Oh, I love her.
She's got great content. She really does have great content. Great content. She really does have great content.
She does. She does.
It's funny you bring up the. We're not going to talk about it because it's just odd timing that you bring up the CNC part of it because we just had a whole conversation in our community about the fact that like I'm generally very pro kink and anti kink shaming, and we talked about what is the role of CNC and the inappropriateness of it when it comes to people who are talking about advocacy and how do you reconcile CNC with the policy of being non-kink shaming. It's just funny because we literally just had an hour-long call in my server about that today to talk about that very issue.
I could literally go on about it forever. Speaking
Wait,
of
what are
the
your thoughts?
dynamics and
Curious
of,
then, because well, so our well, hang on, people in the comments. Should I ask? So there's been a lot of there's a lot of emotions tied up on this one. So people in the comments, should I ask just for curiosity, just to make sure I don't get in trouble? Hang on. People in the comments, should I ask? Just say yes or no. I would like to hear a take. Who cares? Love to hear your thoughts. Okay, not saying negative one. So the position is I am pro kink. I am not in favor of kink shaming, right? And even though I say that, there's certain kinks that I will say that fucking creeps me out. Like I'll never understand feet fetish guys. I'll just never understand it, and I'll always side eye them. And for some reason, anytime I think of a foot fetish guy, I think of some guy peeping underneath like a stall in a bathroom. I don't know why, and so I feel hypocritical about the fact that I'm anti kink shaping. But I think there's definitely certain kinks where I'm like red flaggish, but not like dangerous red flag. However, I can't reconcile that position that genuinely, if two people are engaging in something consensually, that it should be permissible. I can't reconcile that with the fact that if I hear of a guy who's actively seeking out CNC in the form of violent physical rape, reenactment, I cannot view that person as anything other than unsafe. And I'm not sure if that's a bias. It's probably valid for victims of rape to have that position, I guess. But I can't reconcile why I would say that I'm pro kink, I'm anti kink shaming, generally speaking. Yet at the same time, I cannot understand how that is not a red flag of someone who is deeply unsafe, if that makes sense. But so, what's your opinion? Since you seem to have talked about this a fair bit.
Sure. So to preface, I am an incredibly nuanced person. I try and take into consideration all sides. So my opinion on this might be slightly contradictory.
Okay.
I I am pro kink. I am pro sex work. All of those things. Now, feet may be something that I maybe side eye a bit, but I think
Why is that?
I have no idea.
What
From
is
my
it about the feet
understanding,
people that makes the side eye?
I think they're just. I think maybe the allure is a person doesn't typically show their little piggies off. It's not very common. The feet are normally within a shoe, and I understand that there are some shoes that make the sausages look a little bit more obvious. But I do believe that may be something that's normally covered up and kind of hidden away. And that may be it, but I'm not 100% sure. And I don't think I'm going to try much to understand
It
it.
could just be that I'm lucky that I just find all feet really fucking ugly. So maybe I just never could possibly fall for that. But go ahead.
Yeah, that might be it. feet aren't generally an attractive thing. So,
Toes are
um,
particularly scary, but yeah.
yeah, they're a little weird.
Especially that little disappearing baby toe that frequently women have because they have smaller feet, where like the baby toe is so infinitesimal, like so small,
It's
that like you
useless.
barely see a nail popping out. Like it's
Yeah.
more like a bump.
Nope,
Freaks me
it's
out.
useless. It should be
It should
that
be
it should.
amputated at this point.
Yep, no longer should be an appendage.
It's a
Um,
performative toe.
it's definitely there for moral support. My take on something like CNC is that it's definitely predatory of a man specifically to be seeking that out in people because, like, the truth of the matter at the end of the day is they are looking for a person to reenact something violent and something that violates. So generally, I do think that men that specifically seek that out and maybe won't consider a partner without that being a condition are predatory and probably need some serious therapy and maybe to work on a relationship with their mother. I feel like there might be some symbolism there. But for women, I do believe that can be therapeutic sometimes to a victim. It's a really,
A number of victims have shared that.
yeah, I do believe that it's a strange sense of acting out something that didn't feel proper the first time, but now is within their power because it's pre-consented upon. So I think really the only way that I don't normally talk about these things with people, and I don't have many friends, especially not friends that are into this kind of thing. But if I did, I would hope that it would be them to bring it up to their partner and not their partner asking them to engage in this kind of act with them. So I'm not sure
Yeah.
if that makes sense, but
No, no, no. But I agree it's contradictory. So you have the exact same view as me that you're pro kink, you are anti kink shaming. At the same time, you will side eye foot fetish men, and you seem to have a hypocritical exclusion for men who want to seek out CNC. It's the exact same position I have, but I can't defend it very well. In the sense that I just spoke about this, and I feel conflicted about it because I think it's fair for people to have bias. Meaning, I specifically, this is why I asked the people in the comments, uh, should I ask you about this? Because we said we're not going to talk about this in my server ever. And we said that my co-host would not talk about this, but I have said that I would talk about it because I would like to develop my feelings on it a little bit better. I have done some actual research on it in the past few days because we've been talking about it. And I've not been able to find anything that supports the idea that grapey men seek this out. Now, is there going to be good studies for that? No. So, like, the absence of studies doesn't mean it's not true. But I had seen a lot of talk about saying, done with the right parameters, blah 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 blah, and I get that. But the comparison I made is that there's lots of things that can have consensual adults in it that are harmful. And the analogy I made was, it's one thing for a 40-year-old to be with a woman who's say 30 years of age and enjoy when the woman who's 30 years of age has pigtails and a schoolgirl dress on, but looks 30 years of age. That's one thing. It's a different thing if a man who's 40, schoolgirl dress on, but looks 30, is getting with a woman who's 30 because she looks 12. That's different. That's consensual. That's two adults being consensual. But that is so close to the simulated act that we all agree would just be demonic, right? And so I feel like there's some kinks that can get to the level of being so close to the real thing that they are effectively fair to be classified as perhaps something different, if that makes sense. So, like, for example, like I have a hard time saying a 40-year-old who's into a 30-year-old because she looks 12. I don't want to call that a kink. It maybe would technically be, but I wouldn't want to call that. And I think I consider violent grape corn the same thing, which then extends to a question: should people who talk about a grape also advocate for the non-normalization of that kind of thing, i.e., the exclusion of that kind of thing from corn communities? And this is the conversations we've been having for the past couple of days, which is why it was interesting to hear that you would have thoughts on it.
Yeah, and I would love to continue this conversation. Do you mind if I switch over my AirPod real quick? It's
Yeah,
in
sure.
the other room. Okay, I will be back in a moment.
Yeah, no problem. And if anyone else wants to join to share their thoughts on it, feel free, especially anyone who is in the our community. For those who are just arriving, firstly, I believe, let me just make sure she's still here. To the person messaging me right now, could you be more clear what you mean by empathy convo? Okay, I don't see them still here. All right, oh, she is. Okay. So, the Discord now. Everyone relax with that. I saw someone make comments earlier. You didn't know any better. Totally understandable. And I really appreciate the person who I saw correct that. If everyone else could like keep an eye out for those type of comments, that would be great. Um, as for anyone else who's just joining, we have a trigger warning up because we're talking about CNC, which is known as consensual non-consent. And that's a very, very broad term. There are multiple different types of CNC, from forcible reenactment of grape that can include something like simulated kidnappings, simulated home invasions, to something such as what would be considered coercive grape, which would be something that you may have seen in movies where you have the employer trying to take advantage of the secretary. That would still be classified as a form of CNC. And we're talking about how um, sort of the overlap or the what is the sort of appropriate stance that people who care about grape culture and talk on grape culture, what is their appropriate position with regard to the specific type of CNC that is related to violent, physical, forcible reenactments of grape? So the way I would refer to that is the Andrew Tate video. If you all have seen it, if you look it up, major trigger warning. But in that tape, he is very clearly just punching the woman. And to me, like, it just.
Yeah. Hello.
Hey, how old are you, Passionate?
Uh,
Rainbow?
4040.
Okay, go ahead.
I had few thoughts. I don't know which one to say now. I had something to ask you about, like few words you used in the beginning.
Sure.
I also could say something about kings, maybe.
Share
Or
whatever you want. What would you like to share?
the first thought, I even don't know if you want to talk about it, but it was I really like what you're talking about, women's issues and everything. But I also messaged you, and I just don't know why, like, you use words like slut, cunt, and pussy when degrading men, because it's like
Yeah.
it's continuous misogyny.
Sure. So part of the reason is my approach with guys who are exhibiting toxic masculinity is to usually try to use toxic masculinity against them in order to sort of break down their ego. Guys are not used to other men confronting them and challenging them like emotionally or like intellectually, or being abusive to them or visiting toxic masculinity on them outside of physical violence. And we have seen that when I do that, quite often, how often, I don't know, but maybe like 1 out of 5 times, we tend to see that guy has a bit of a break where they start realizing that they're not this top dog that they think they are in their own head. And that then, once they have that break, they become almost like a little bit submissive or open to like retraining. And they become more open to now listening, whereas before they weren't listening. And I've tried like multiple different ways of doing this. I've tried multiple different approaches. This one works for me. And I don't disagree that you could say that it contributes to it for sure. I kind of just look at it from a harm reduction standpoint, and I think it does more good than not. And I don't base that on my own personal opinion. I have a community of people, specifically, almost not exclusively women, but mostly women, and also victims of SA who give me feedback in terms of the utility of using these tools versus the harm. And I kind of defer to that kind of feedback to know generally when I'm going too far or what I should be curbing and stuff. Based upon that feedback, I just kind of use my best judgment, if that makes sense.
Thank you for answer. I understand you. These
It doesn't mean
people,
I'm right, just to be clear, but yep.
yeah, I think, yeah, you're right. These people recognize power. So yeah, I understand. But maybe I don't know. I just think that maybe sometime you can, like in your life, maybe after talking with this person or something, you can just with this person or something, you can just say people that that these words are not okay or something. I mean, you
I don't
understand
do
what I
that.
mean?
You're right. I actually don't do that. That's actually a great point. Thank you. I actually never do that now that I think about it. And people often don't understand what I'm doing. I just trust that people who are in here have been here a while and they know what I do. That's actually a good takeaway. I'd never thought about that. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I think, yeah, maybe you can try that, because like for example, when I come and I don't know you, right? I'm like a first time comer, and then I could think like, well, these guys think talking something real nice, but then these words maybe give some red flags, because like there are men who they talk real nice and everything, but they are like pretending they're good guys, and because to get women or something,
Hmm.
but inside they think something nasty. So sometimes for people it can be, oh, there are tiny red flags, and maybe that's like the tip of the iceberg, like that.
Yeah, I think the reason why I've never really cared so much is that I don't really do this for like a following. And so I'm usually only looking at trying to get guys in here to change their mind. And I'm kind of know that if a woman comes across alive, they're going to likely see me acting toxic as fuck, which is why, like, when I hear a lot of women are like, oh, I wouldn't trust him because look at how he talks, look at how he shouts, look how angry he gets. I'm like, yeah, of course they would think like that. But like I don't think I'm looking to get women in here, if that makes sense. I'm not trying to build an audience. I'm not trying to make women feel safe in here. Cause like that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is get guys in here and talk to them. And if some women are watching and understand what I'm doing, that's great. Um, but it's not really my goal per se. But I don't think it hurts by doing it. It's just that that's why I don't think I ever think about that because I'm never trying to like build my audience, if that makes sense.
Okay, I understand. I was just thinking that maybe some guys who are like, let's say, watching and they are toxic, they could think like, well, he's using these words, so he's kind of talking for women, but he's kind of like also a little bit confirming what actually we deep down inside believe, that women are like, lower race, like, maybe sometimes that could happen.
Yeah, no, I mean that's fair. And there are some things like just to be clear, I don't like to think I'm talking for women. I think I've tried to. figure out what it is I do on this app, I think what I do is I try to call out abuse. So it's not that I'm talking for women, I would like to think. I think it's more so that I like to call out abusive behavior, but I recognize what you're saying. The other part of it is that I am going to definitely do things that some people think are wrong and which may in fact be wrong. So, for example, like, there are certain words, like I do are wrong and which may in fact be, you use the word, you're a little bitch. And that obviously has a misogynistic beginning. But I've also talked to like enough people where I feel like there's a broad consensus of women that agree that that's sort of become a gender neutral term. And it's really hard to come up with ways to break a person down without using words that sound bad. It's so hard to like visit power on these guys without being insulting to someone. Like, you can't. There's so many things you just can't say, and the kind of things you would say is, "Oh, you're not a very intelligent person." That's not going to get them. But then if you say you're really fucking stupid and you never got educated, well, now you're hurting people who never went to school. And now you're being classist because some people aren't able to afford to go to school. And so it's just really hard to figure out how to do it without hurting some group. And I just try to hurt as little as possible, if that makes sense. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to hurt some people.
It makes sense. But I mean, probably some other person could make this topic that imagine you, for example, like men living in the world where it's so like everywhere. When you see this everywhere, that these words and everything, why it's so natural, you know? Like even the word like, can I say fuck? I don't know. Like even the word fuck, everybody using that in movies and everywhere, but why is so ingrained that sexual thing is bad, women's body parts are bad, or like, okay, okay, thank you for answer.
No problem. Rainbow, what is the accent, by the way?
Latvian one.
Latvian. Okay, I was just curious.
You probably
Pash.
don't know.
Sorry?
I'm sorry. You probably don't know where it is.
Latvia in northeast corner of Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to Latvia. Estonia, traveled all the way up from Bulgaria, Romania, Ukraine.
Oh, nice.
It was amazing. Yeah. Um, Passionate. So, what were the thoughts you wanted to share on CNC?
Um, I feel like I pretty much gave you my whole answer. I feel like
Okay.
it's predatory if men seek it out. You did predatory if men seek it out. You mentioned like something like age play though. I also think that's weird and should set off some red flags, but I kind of feel the same way about CNC that I do about age play. The men who seek it out might be kind of red flaggy, kind of needs to be on a watch list somewhere. The women who participate in it are probably doing so out of trauma and control. So we could go into that more if you want.
No, I agree with you. I think the problem is I can't come up I can't come up with a good intellectual argument for why I would say I'm pro kink yet. I feel like there are a couple of types of what people may call kink that I want to carve out of the community. And it's where it's essentially simulating an act that we all know is incredibly improper. And when I try to put words to it, it's very difficult to use very precise words. Because, like, for example, I don't really care about someone engaging in employer secretary role play. That's, to me, not a huge red flag. But someone who wants to engage in violent, forcible rape, like, not that I would ever tell my sister or my daughters like who to date, but if I could like press a button and have them not date that man, I would press it 5 times. Like I'd press it 100 times. And I can't figure out a way to articulate why those should not be considered kinks, even though they do fall under the idea of consensual activity between two consenting adults.
I would agree with you. Actually, um it's one of those conversations that kind of leads into um harsh territory. You really don't know because I mean, I don't know how many conversations you've had with people about these things, but it's not like, your cousins are going to go up to you and tell you that they're engaging in this kind of behavior and that assuming it's a heterosexual straight couple, um, would just say, "Oh yeah, like I specifically sniffed her out for this reason." Um, I also don't know how permanent those kind of relationships are. Um, I do think that people should engage in healthy relationship dynamics if they're going to engage in something like this as well. There has to be some kind of love and aftercare that coexist with this kind of um, release, let's say.
Matt,
So go ahead.
No,
can
go
I
ahead.
add? Maybe I'm a little bit into these things, and I think that maybe what you're trying to say, Irish, is that in those people who are on the dominant side of CNC, there is a percentage of people who are actually like sadists and people who actually do enjoy hurting others. So they maybe go into these relationships where it's like consensual, but you don't know which one of them are safe. You know.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like again, and I really don't want to make people feel shamed. I am coming from a place of I just don't get it. The idea of someone enjoying being hurt, I get that. I get that, right? I get the idea of someone enjoying anything from light spanking to something that's even more pain. I understand that people can get off on pain, right? I guess I cannot put my head in the mind of the sadist. And it's sort of the same thing with CNC. There's actually a lot that I did read about women who have been raped who've talked about how for them, whether or not is actually whether or not this is actually healthy for them to do is a different question, but that they claimed that engaging in CNC was a form of empowerment for them and therapeutic in the sense that they were able to reacclimate and feel safer as a result of reenacting something that happened to them where they didn't have control. And it slowly helped them to feel like they had power. So I can kind of understand that argument. I'm not validating that argument because I haven't seen any actual therapeutic studies that substantiate that as being helpful. Studies that's full, but I can understand that. I can't put my head in the mind of the guy, and I'm going to say guy because like I'm going to assume it's mostly guys. I can't put my head in the mind of the guy who gets off on hurting the other person. Unless they're doing like maybe yeah, I have a hard time putting I like and I do recognize that people recognize that sadism is a kink. And so like I don't want to talk broadly on sadism because like I understand a lot of people think it is a kink, but even sadism is somewhat akin to this idea of CNC, where I don't know why you would sexually, if you sexually get off on hurting someone,
Can I
I just
speak on
automatically
this?
feel like that makes a person a little bit more unsafe. What's up, Nora?
Hi. Yeah. So I'm actually into CNC.
Can you be
I've
more
been
specific
to
though as to what type? We talked about the fact that there's, simulated
all
home
types, all
invasion.
types,
Okay, so you're
all types.
into
Like,
even the forcible physical grape reenactments.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Being chased through the woods, kind of thing. Being kidnapped, kind of thing. A home invasion while I'm asleep, reenacting things. All of it.
Okay.
All of it. So I'm into it all from the submission position, right? And what I find is that, right? And what I find is that a lot of people, a lot of men will actually be uncomfortable with it at first, and they won't want to do it because they don't want to hurt you and they don't want to risk having things be misconstrued or accidentally taking it too far, because obviously it is a very risky thing. Misconstrued or accidentally taking it too far, which is why there needs to be clear boundaries. It's also actually how I first got graped, because I said the safe word 4 times and he did not listen. He actually slapped me and told me that word didn't mean anything, which was where it stopped being CNC and started being grape, right? When it comes down to CNC, it's more about the power dynamic. It's more about the idea of one person having all of the control and the other person being entirely helpless, the other person being unable to stop them. It's about the aspect of, I want you so badly, and they want me so badly that they can't stop themselves, right? It's more about those kinds of things rather than the aspect of actually harming the individual. They tend to get off more on the power that they have, the control that they have, and they can use it in any way they want, right? So some people will use CNC and they'll only focus on themselves as the dom in that situation, whereas other people use CNC and they'll focus on their partner as the sub in that situation, and like, get them there as much as they can before they say the safe word, right? And like, that is another aspect that can like happen in CNC. It's not necessarily about harming the other party. It's more just about the reluctance and one party being helpless and one party having control.
So I guess the problem I have is like I understand what you said. Like obviously we understand it's about power dynamics. Obviously we understand that it's about exploring the boundaries of those power dynamics, right? But you can say that people who enjoy grape are also doing it because they enjoy the power dynamics. And so stating that this is what they like about it, we understand what they like about it, right? The problem is that there's different ways of enacting those power dynamics. And the question is I can understand someone who may want to, question is I can understand to engage in role play where it's like an employer and a secretary situation, right? I can understand someone who engages in S&M. I can understand someone who engages in sub-dom, right? That's all exploring the exact same things you're talking about, right? That's all exploring the exact same things you're talking about. But
Yes.
simulating a grape, that's pretty specific. And it's the specificity of that that makes me pause and makes me think it's more than just a red flag. Like, I'll be super clear. It's more than just a red flag. If a guy, and like, I think you know that as well, because think about it, like you said yourself, I don't think men will usually say, I was scared to explore being dominant. I was hesitant to explore this, but you said that when it came to men who were engaging in that type of activity.
Yeah.
And, honestly, like respectfully, and this is no disrespect to you, but I'm pretty freaky, right? I've never had to ask someone to do something twice, ever. And I've just never done it. if I bring something up and they're not interested, they're not interested. And yet, one of the things I frequently hear from women who engage in this is that when they bring it up to men, they're not interested. Yet they do it, which indicates to me, and I'm not making an allegation, Nora, please don't take this personally. It indicates to me that in order to get men to engage in it, either they're thirsty to engage in it, or they have to be talked into it, which is itself problematic.
Oh yeah, 100%. I can see where you're coming from. I mean, like, I can give sort of my perspective on that because obviously, like I said, I've had men who have been like uncomfortable with that idea. And essentially, I just kind of turn around and been like, look, these are all my kinks, right? A lot of them are intense, right? Because I am very freaky. So if you ever want to try any of them, feel free. This is one that I'm particularly into. This is one that I'm not so bothered about. You know, if you want to try any of them, let me know. And then they might ask me questions. And then as time goes on and the trust is kind of built, then they might go like, hey, I would be willing to try this, right? But they tend to have a lot of questions about CNC specifically, just because they aren't sure about the boundary crossing and how important it is to me, how dangerous it might be for me, and just sort of like whether or not they would feel comfortable having that much power over me, because I'm just like, when it comes down to CNC, I'm giving up all of my power, consensually giving it up, but I'm pretending that it's obviously not consensually, which can be kind of a strange experience. I've tried to be the dom in that situation before, and it just wasn't something that I was interested in. I am a switch, so I do like having power over other people, but it's not like to that extent. You know, it's more obviously like some of the situations you mentioned before. So like I can definitely understand the sort of uncomfy feeling of like, I don't know if this is real, like I don't even know if they're okay with this, and like the anxiety around that a lot of people have. I can also understand the aspect of I don't want to hurt them, which is a lot of reason why a lot of people don't want to do it. It's kind of a difficult thing to explain because it's not done with the intent of actually harming somebody.
I mean,
That's like the big difference. Again, like the reason they get off on it, I can't fully understand myself because I'm not personally into being the dom in that situation, although I have tried it. It just wasn't my thing. But
like, I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that men are overwhelmingly the people who want to be the dom in the CNC situation. Whereas, and part of my concern is we recognize that there's not a small percentage of men who do want to grape women, right? We it's an obscure study, but there is that, I think it's the University of Wisconsin study that showed that 50% of men said that they would grape a woman if there's no legal consequence, and 30% of men said that they would grape her as long as they didn't use the word grape. So basically they were asked, would you grape a woman if there's no legal consequences and social consequences? 15% of men said yes. But when then asked, would you force a woman to have sex with you if there was no legal or social consequences? 30% of men said yes. So recognizing that, how do we not know that the men who are getting off on this are not those men? Because otherwise, where is that desire to hurt coming from? Because like, as someone who I consider myself dominant in the bedroom, but I'm what I guess you would call a pleasure dom. And so I can understand the idea of someone getting pleasure, not from hurting someone, but because the person you are hurting is experiencing pleasure, right? I totally get that. I think the difference is that in non-CNC sub-dom play, the reassurance from the sub cues that they're enjoying it in the moment. And so I can understand the idea of someone enjoying it because they're enjoying the pleasure being given, not the harm. But in the type of CNC that we're talking about, there's none of that reinforcement. In fact, it's the absence of that reinforcement that makes it that kink. It's the absence of reassurance that the sub, or in this case, the simulated victim, is not enjoying it for a prolonged period of time, that is what makes the kink what it is. And so I really am having a hard time understanding, why would a man sexually get off on visiting pain and harm to a person for a prolonged period of time in the absence of repeated reassurance that the person is enjoying it. And I think it's really problematic that what I often hear from the women who engage in this, and I'm not shaming the women who are engaging in it. At minimum, it could be a coping mechanism. Doesn't make it a healthy coping mechanism, but it's disturbing to me, this idea that these men often have to be convinced to do it. Because I think when I remind them, hey, that sounds like you're coercing them, they all of a sudden flip and start saying, well, they actually kind of liked it. They just needed to know what the parameters were. And then it's kind of going back to this idea, the guys actually are pretty liking it. The guys are pretty into it, actually, it seems. They were just a little bit curious about the rules around it. But it quickly turns into, no, the guys, after a while, they start to really enjoy it. And that's where it begs the question again. Why? Why are they enjoying it? Because, like, when it comes to people who enjoy being subbed, it makes total sense. We go around carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. And so the fact that some people will want to be in a position where they have all decision-making removed from them, that would be pleasurable. I understand why subs get off on that. There's a very logical reason why a sub would get off on that. Why someone would enjoy doming in that type of way, I just can't think of a non-insidious motivation, sexual motivation that's not insidious. Same thing with
It is
same.
insidious.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm trying not to be a hypocrite. Like, I really do want to, because I recognize that, like, it is a bias, obviously, but I am trying to be fair that there may be an answer to this that I just have not got my head around. But yeah, like I keep coming back to, it's just fucking insidious, I think.
If I may, I would like to interject here. I believe that this kind of activity combines two pleasures that have been consistent throughout all history with men. I do believe that it combines physical pleasure with mental pleasure, which is power and control. And I think that definitely can be a problem in these kind of blurred line scenarios. Um, I will be right back. You guys can have your conversation. I'm going to mute my mic. I hear my baby crying.
I'm really sorry if that's my fault.
If what's your fault?
I don't want to trigger anyone or anything. It's
We've got the trigger warning up. Everyone
yeah.
needs to leave. This is a very sensitive topic. So please manage your triggers by leaving, because we're talking about this now. We might as well. But go ahead, Alexis.
Yeah, I kind of just like, it's kind of an extreme control idea, right? Like everybody wants to have control in some way or another, right? But you can't really control anything in the real world. But when somebody is saying to you, like, I will give up like my body to you, I'll pretend that I don't like it, and then like you have full control there. You are making every decision there. You can be entirely in control. I think that's just a way of sort of bringing that aspect of control into real life, an aspect of control that you don't really have, right? You can't like go into work and just be like, I'm the manager now. You can't turn around and just be like, right, you're an asshole, get the fuck out. You can't do those kinds of things. Well, I mean, you can, but you're gonna get in a lot of fucking trouble for it, right? You won't be able to just kind of like do that. You're not going to be able to have that control outside. Whereas if somebody's like turning around to you, somebody that you love and you trust, and they're saying like, I will give you this full control over my body, you know, and you can just use it however you want. And if I say this word, that's when you stop, because I've reached my limit. But other than that, you can do what you want. I think it does just come down to the aspect of they're wanting to control something, which doesn't sound very good when it comes to, you know, the idea of like, well, men want to control women. I don't think it's necessarily in these scenarios about controlling the woman. I think it's just wanting to have an aspect of control.
The pushback I would give is, again, there's multiple types of CNC, and I'm not even necessarily attacking, for example, free use CNC. And free use CNC does exactly what you said.
Yeah,
Free
love
use
for you.
CNC, yeah, free use CNC allows the ordinarily the woman to someone. Absolutely, free use is the greatest degree of control. And for people who don't understand free use, you know what? I don't want to get clipped explaining it. Neuro, do you want to explain it so I don't get clipped?
No safe words.
Sorry, go. What'd you say, Rainbow?
It means no safe words.
No, no, no.
No, not what it means at all. There are definitely safe words. There's a lot of clear communication around free use, around any type of CNC. There needs to be clear-cut communication. There needs to be safe words. There needs to be clear limits. And if you ever reach one of those limits where it's a new one, you weren't aware of it before, then you say the safe word, you stop, you discuss it, right? That's how it has to be. There has to also be aftercare. But when it comes to free use, it's essentially they can use you how you want, how they want, when they want, right? So we could give the example of like they've had a bad day at work and they come home and they just go strip bed now, and then they kind of like use you as a way to get their anger out or their frustration out, right? Or it could be like you're asleep in bed and they just come in and they wake you up with it, right? Those kinds of things count as free use because it's them just using you, right?
The
And
way
you
that
have,
it's good.
sorry.
Well, the way that it's often encapsulated in corn is the idea that a woman is doing dishes or doing laundry, and the man comes up behind her, and as she continues to do her chores, quote unquote, the guy just has free reign, and she continues going about her business as if he's doing nothing. So free
Yep.
use is almost like you're not even recognizing that you're being used in the moment. And so the point I'm making is that that is arguably the highest form of controlled dominance. The problem I have with the type of CNC that is a simulated forcible physical grape is it adds something on top of control, and that is total control in opposition to you wanting to give control. And that's the element that to me, I don't quite understand. I've never desired to, I can't understand the idea of wanting to have control against someone's consent. And that's what the whole idea of that forcible grape part is. Otherwise, free use does exactly what you're saying.
Can
So
I
I don't,
share?
sorry, go ahead, Ramo.
I didn't want to interrupt. I had a few ideas about your
Yeah, go for
question.
it.
I'm not sure if it's true and I don't want to like justify anything, but I had this thought about that. Let's say how they say in brain, something connects in different way. So for a masochist, it's like pain and pleasure connects, which is illogical. But when it connects, it can from pain give you pleasure, right? So I was thinking you don't understand, like let's say sadist, and I don't justify, but I'm thinking what if it's the same thing, like it's just like a button, and of course they can behave like normally in society, not do any harm, but what if they just have this like a button? Understand what I mean?
No, explain that again.
for a masochist, like a button is like when you press something and then you get pleasure. So for a masochist or any person with fetish, like feet guy, you press feet, he gets pleasure. For a masochist, you press like pain, the person gets pleasure. So what if for a sadist, that's also like a button where he sees somebody being hurt or somebody getting something against their will, and it's like a button for them to get pleasure. Maybe there is no logic, no explanation, but like there is this connection where they get satisfaction from that. Understand what I mean?
There's
Uh-oh, you're in trouble.
Bad. I don't know.
yeah. No. I guess
I
I'm
don't
not.
think Boss Lady was talking to you.
No, Wolfie is chastising me in the comments.
Yeah, that.
It's okay. Wolfie, thankfully, I also like being humiliated and punished by women, so it'll be fine. Um,
Jesus.
is anyone else following Rainbow on this one? I'm just not tracking it. I understand the idea of having buttons for specific type of things. When it comes to people who may engage in that, the button is more so doing something against someone's consent, but I'm not quite tracking what the conclusion.
No, my point was you were saying that you don't understand
Oh,
how
meaning
that
I
feels.
lack the button. I lack
Yeah,
the button. Yeah,
yeah,
no,
exactly.
I
You
agree. I agree. I agree that that could be what it is. I agree that that could be what it is, which is why, again, I won't make a declarative statement, right? Um, and so I very well may be wrong on it. It's just I have a very, I really just cannot get my head around it. And like Wolfie in the comments is going to be doing her best to talk to me about it in order to understand it. But even if it is something that is valid, I do wonder, and I fucking, Mac's not here, so I can say this. Talking to Mac about this, because Mac is the one who's actually kind of changed my mind on this, because at first I was like, whatever consent. Talking to Mac about this, because Mac is the thing adults do, I'm not going to fucking tell him, please. And talking to Mac, like, I'm kind of impressed that some of the shit she has said has changed my mind on it. And what I mean by it is this: if it's normalized as a form of a kink, wouldn't you see bad actors using that as a form of a kink as a mechanism to get women to do it by saying things like, hey, this is a good therapeutic coping mechanism for you? Or normalizing it to the extent of almost like, let me rephrase it. Like, let's be clear, not coming at Neurospicy, love you, Neurospicy, but Neurospicy did talk about the fact that the guy was not very comfortable with it and had to be kind of talked into it. Well, isn't it true the other way? Because the only experience I have with CNC and what I think created a large part of my bias was when a woman came to me about a year ago and came to me for help regarding a guy who's a rapist and confided in me that that rapist practiced CNC with her and that that rapist talked her into it, that that rapist said, hey, it's a form of a kink, nothing wrong with us exploring it, let's give it a go. And I guess that's part of where, and to be fair, that's true about any kink. Right. And so, again, this may be a bias that I have for this specific kink where I just feel like it's more insidious that someone who's got bad faith could do that. I understand, Wolfie. I understand that that could apply to all kinks. I do get that. But it's a concern that I definitely do have in this area.
That's understandable. That is definitely very understandable. I mean, in my situations, it's never been that I'm like talking them into it. It's more just been like, hey, look, these are my kinks. Pick and choose. If you're comfortable with them, then you're comfortable with them. We can try them. If we try them and you don't like them, let me know. We won't do it again. Right? And it's just kind of like it's there if you're open to it. If you like the same things that I like, great. If you've never tried them before, let me know if you're comfortable trying them. Right? Because I've tried a lot of things that most people haven't. Um, very, very experimental. So I've got like a long fucking list, and a lot of people will turn around and say like, I really don't want to try that, and I really don't want to try that. But I would actually be really into this. I'd love to try this, right? Which is why I just kind of give them the free range of like, here's everything that I like, you know? Um, and that is one where like I say to them like, hey, like I do really, really like this one. But obviously it's not for everyone. It's not for most people. But we could talk about different scenarios if it was something that you would want to do, you know, and we'll have just like clear cut conversations about it and communicate about, you know, specific things, even when it comes down to like free use, right? I find that that's one that should be communicated about because I've had it before where like he really, really liked waking me up with it, right? And like, okay, cool, awesome. So there was one night where I was going to sleep and I just felt really shitty. Um, and I'd like just got on my period and that, and I was just like, absolutely the fuck not. So I literally just turned over before we went to sleep, and I was like, look, just tomorrow morning, don't do it, right? Like any other time, you know, I'd be okay with it, but I'm just feeling really shit right now, and I don't think I'm gonna be feeling it in the morning. I'd rather not be woken up with it. And it was just like, oh, okay, cool. And that was that, right? And that's it. I took my consent away. He respected that, and that's it. And again, like that is for use. Um, so it's not necessarily like the recreating of the grape or the reenacting of a specific one, but it's less like about talking them into it, and it's more about kind of still having that respect for each other, which I find a lot of people tend to lose when that much power is given to them, which is a difficult thing. And it's kind of how I went through my first grape experience because he didn't respect me and he didn't respect when I said the safe word. Word. Um, which again, communication needs to be incredibly fucking clear. And
Well,
he managed to get away with it. Yeah,
that was not a case of
I was
bad
clear.
communication though. Like, yeah, like
Yeah,
yes.
I was clear, but like that's just sort of an example of you need to be fucking clear about if I say this word, I was clear, but like you fucking stop, right?
Wait, can I ask you something
He,
about that example you just gave?
yeah.
So, like, because I guess I'm wondering, and I know Wolfie answered me, and also a passion. I'm not sure how to say your name. A passion Lotto, in the comments. But like, I guess I'm wondering, how often do we think that this is someone that
Wait, I'm sorry. Do you have a fucking parrot?
me? Why am I echoing?
Oh, that's Family Guy. Oh, I thought you had a parrot. No, it's okay.
Oh, a parent? No,
I'm just
no.
I have trauma from women who own birds. So I got triggered. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. I need to know that story, but no,
It's a
there's no
very
parrot.
specific trauma. Go ahead.
That is hilarious.
Trauma. Go ahead.
That is hilarious. I'm sorry. Um, thanks for distracting me, Irish. Um, but anyways, I'm trying to figure out. I guess like I'm thinking like, okay, how often does someone that is, say, a predator potentially use this for someone that would try to take it to where it's manipulating or it turns into non-consensual. And I know that the whole concept of this is, you know, having consent, and I get that. But what I guess I'm thinking is it's so easy for these people that are predators to manipulate their victims, right? So they could be thinking that they started off that way, right? And then it turns into this thing that it's not consensual, or they don't listen anymore. Or this is kind of like where Max Live the other day we were going, is that they kind of escalate too. If it is someone that has this like I don't know, this darker side, I guess, because it's hard for me to wrap my head around why does any man want to pretend to grape you? I don't, I guess I can't understand that.
Well,
No,
yeah,
and I get that. I do entirely get that. With my ex specifically, he is a psychopath, diagnosed with psychopathy. He was also extremely abusive in other ways. But it stopped being CNC the moment that he started disrespecting my boundaries because I'd said that morning, I'm not interested in actually having sex today. But I'm okay with like doing bits. I'm just not interested in actually having sex because I know that I'm due on tomorrow and I'm just in a lot of pain and I'm just really not in the mood for that. Um, but doing bits, like I'm absolutely fine with, right? The moment that he disrespected that, that was where it became non-consensual. That was where it became great, right? And that was where the problem lies. So that was a pretty severe case of mental manipulation and abuse, and this was, months after a lot of the other abuse had started. So it was kind of a difficult situation there, but I've never, because I've been with a lot of people who have wanted to do CNC with a lot of people who have been like open to trying it, and that is the one and only time that it's ever been used in that context where they've actually just ignored that I've then taken away consent.
I do want to be clear. And Rainbow, you can talk after I just make this very quick point. I think the fact that the one person I know who engaged in CNC was a grapist should not be used to validate the idea that grapists are into this. I think that's as dangerous as people who say they read a case of a trans person who was found with a child, right? Using one example to validate a very general, broad, just what anyone's doing. I just want to say that. But with that said, Rainbow, you were going to say something. I say.
Just very quickly, I am gonna go because there's someone in the comments who's just, but I'm just
With that said, Rainbow, you were going to say something.
gonna put out that if I'm like over talking or anything, I do apologize. I was just trying to answer the question, but yeah, I'm gonna dip.
No, it's fine.
Thank you for having me up.
Rainbow's not
Bye,
used to
guys.
the sort of format we have. No problem. All the best. Rainbow, go ahead.
Sorry, I mean, I don't want to just interrupt. I think it's,
Format we have. No problem. All the best. Rainbow.
sorry, I mean, I don't want to just, not very nice to take microphone 90% when there are like 6 people. I'm sorry.
I know, but that's just how we do it. That's how I know, but that's just how we do it. That's how I run the live. Loudest person talks. Like it's hard otherwise. But go ahead.
And you're a bully.
But go ahead.
And you're a bully.
What?
I was saying Irish was a bully.
She's making a joke. Yeah. But go ahead. What did you want to share, Rainbow?
Yeah, the first one who grabs the mic, right?
Yeah, that's how. I mean, that is how we do the live. Just to be clear, though.
Yeah, it's okay. I just sorry. So I wanted to say that I have another thought that let's imagine like mind, like ego, and let's say heart or soul. So I think that I have this idea why some people can connect only get arousal from power, all the forms of power. I was just thinking, what if those people don't have access to their heart or soul? Like, what if their only
Their
satisfaction?
heart and soul. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have this thought. Sorry.
Okay, go on.
Thought, like you said, for example, you can do pain to other person if you see that the person likes it. So basically you like when other person likes it, so you have like heart or empathy, and people who are, let's say, in love, they can get aroused from, oh, I love this person, and then I get aroused. But I think, what if there are people who don't have access to their empathy or heart? I don't want to say they don't have heart or empathy, but let's say they don't have access to that level of connection. And I think that only level of connection, not like connection, but arousal, can come from brain. And I have this theory about that, like brain is about ego and ego is about power. So basically all these, like, well, when people ask, oh, why porn so much is about dominating women and there's so little love or anything like that, I was thinking, what if people who don't have love, or they can't reach love or empathy, the only way how they can get off is because of power? And I feel this with myself too. Like when I don't have a person I love or something, then I need to don't kind of, I mean, sorry for so long talk, but like I think that making like love with sex with love is better than just with these power games. But when I don't have that, let's say a person I love, then I feel like better than just with, I don't have kind of like choice to return back to like power fantasies, because then there is like, I can't make love fantasy like if I don't have person. You understand what I mean? Or am I talking to gibberish?
Passionate boss lady, did you guys track?
Sorry, I'm in the comments. I apologize.
I think I got what she was saying, the gist of it at least, kind of. I did not get that first part about heart and soul. Um, but I think